Good morning. A good Erev Shabbos. Shabbos Mevarchim. Shabbos Mevarchim Chedesh Tammuz. Name is Barchin. Alle Grace tag all the big days of Chedesh Tammuz. Iker Atzleinu. Gimel Tammuz. Day of Skashus Rebbe. This year we have additional form of Skashus on Gimel Tammuz because the Siyum Rambam takes place on Gimel Tammuz itself. So it's really a special connection. And then all the other days of Tammuz, the Chagagula, Beis, Gimel, and the Yamim Elushim Yehafchu, Rosas and Simcha, all is Mizbarach on the Shabbos. We're learning today Hilchas Mamrim, and Hilchas Mamrim appears the halachas of Kibud Aveim. So, in today's halachas, we're going to do Perik Vov, which is the last of the three prakim of today. So he said in halacha Aleph, we're going to do halacha Aleph, Gimel, and Zayin. Halacha Aleph, he just, I'm not going to read inside, he just goes and shows how Kibud Aveim, how great the mitzvah is, and that it is connected, it's equal to Kved HaMokim, Hishra HaKosuv, Shakal Oisan HaKosuv, B'Chvedei U'Meroi. Rambam is very medayik in his lashon, as we all know. He uses the lashon shakal. He weighed them. Bichvei de maroi. He weighed them with his cover and his merit. And at the end, he has a derech shetziva al kved shmei hagodol u'moiroi kach tziva al kved u'moiroi. Just like he was mitzvah on his covered, on his meira, so too on the covered meira of the parents. The source of this is a brayso in Masechtas Kedushin, Daf Lamed Amud Beis, where there it says covered the Selichas and Mechel, brings all the psukim and all the thing, and their lashon of the Gemara is not shakal. There the Gemara's lashon is hishve, compared, or is equated. Is there a difference? I'm not sure. I'm just noting that the Rambam changed the lashon of Gemara. I believe that the Rambam is a stronger lashon than the Gemara, shakal than hishve, but that's good. Halacha Gimel, the Rambam does what you need to do. What is Meir and Kibud? I'm sorry, I think it's Aflamed Amar Aleph, I believe. That Gemara. So the halacha Gimel, the Rambam comes along and says, what is Meir? What is Kibud? And he describes it. Meir is doing things that are respect and awe of the parent. You're not allowed to argue with him. You're not allowed to go against him. You're not allowed to sit in his place. You're not allowed to different opinions what it means machriya as devara. You should not call him by name. Then he goes on. Kibud is serving him, feeding him, bringing him drinks, clothing him. And then Rambam paskins clearly that's mishal of. However, if the father has no money, the son should chip in. Is that a din in Kibud Av and then in Tzedakah? It's a different discussion. We're not going to get into that now, although it's important. And he helps him come and go. And he helps, stands in front of him like by his Rebbe. Yes, takes care of him. That also is a Gemara in Masechta. I'm sorry, that's Lamed Amud Beis. This is Lamed Aleph Amud Beis. Ezu Meira, Ezu Kibud. It says pretty much the same ideas. Now comes halacha Zayin. And that's a question, which is really the Gemara's question. And we'll come to that too. Ad heichan hu kibbud aveim. How far do we go with kibbud aveim? What is the degree? So we all know the story of Dama ben Messina. If you don't know it, there are videos of it for the children, maybe for adults too. And beautiful stories of Dama ben Messina, and talks about his great kibbud aveim with the paraduma, with this, and he got a lot of lumdish and yonim in there. We're not getting into that. And the Rambam brings like this: Ad heichen hu kibbud aveim. If the parents walk in and over to him, take away his bundle or his wallet where he has a lot of money, and in front of him, throw it into the ocean. You're not allowed to respond. Don't show them any anger. Don't even show them your pain. And don't embarrass them. And here the Rambam says an interesting lashon, which is, I'll be honest with you, it's something that's been bothering me for many years. Eliyakabel gzeiras hakosu v'yishtek. Rambam said, adds, accept the decree of the Eibishter. Okay, good. I mean, truth is, that's the rule of any mitzvah. Either you got to do something, you got to do it. Now goes the second mach, and here's what really bothers me is the contrast. How far, what's called moira. So the Rambam says another story, which was a story of Dama ben Messina. He was dressed in the most honorable clothing and sitting in the honorable seat in front of great people. And his parents came, tore his clothing, hit him on the head, spit in his face. You should not embarrass him. Now here the Rambam also says to be quiet, but he uses a different motion, not Yikabel Gzeres HaKos V'Yishtek, El Yishtek V'Yira V'Yifachad Mimelech Malchi Amlochem Shetzivol V'Kach. Yeah, you gotta be afraid of the Eibishter. Now he said, and I answered Pilpul, She'ilu Melech Basav Adam Gozer Olav Davar Shu Mitzar Yesem Izel or Yochel Varchas Midav. He couldn't even hesitate. Now, let's. I do not understand this Rambam. This is not for the Gemara. The Gemara and Lamed Aleph asked the Shaila Heichen Kibbud Aveim, brings the stories as I told you from Dama ben Messina, the famous ones. Adds this other story about tearing his clothing, right? Notably, the Gemara puts it, doesn't say clearly, but the Gemara never mentioned Meir, just Kibbud Aveim. And tells the story about she hit him on the head, but spit at him and he didn't respond. He didn't embarrass her. So, but what where does this is by Kibbud it's Yikabel Gzeres HaKos V'Yishtek, by Meir it's suddenly here the Eibishter. What's going on here? What's going on? That's one major question. It's always bothering. Second question is, what makes the first story Kibbud and the second story Meir? They're both similar stories. One is she took money and threw it out. One he hit him on the face, hit him in the head, and spit at him. Why is this Meir and this is Kibbud? They're both either Kibbud or both Meir. They should both be Meir. The same idea. Here he threw out something, and here they hit him. And yet, there's no indication in the Gemara that these are two separate inyanim. The Rambam makes it that way. This is the Rambam's intervention in the Gemara and telling us what the Gemara really means. It's obvious that the Rambam is not just throwing out words here. He's connecting things to Meir, connecting things to Kibbud in different ways. Okay. Now, there's obviously a question which we're going to discuss later. How is this covered? Parent does something crazy. How does this covered? Okay, so there's the Farshim asked that, Taisus asked that a little differently, but the point is asked, and the answer is because the father has an intent, or the mother has an intent that you should be afraid of them. They want to scare the people. They want to scare the kids. So that's why they're throwing out the the kiss of Zahav. But I also want to understand the Gemara. The Gemara to me, we said, we always ask questions on Rambam, but let's ask questions on the Gemara. The order of the Gemara is hard to understand. And I think it's not only hard to understand, it's so telling. Start off with the first thing we said about the greatness of Kibbud Avim, how it's equated to Moira, the Kibbud Amokim, the Kved Amokim, Moira is Amokim. Beautiful. Then the Gemara asks a question, the next piece of Gemara of those halachas of the Rambam. Asks a question, Ad Heichen Kibbud Avim, and he gives a lot of answers. Now, a block later, a month later, we finally ask the question, Eza Meir Eza Kibbud, and tells us all those answers. Now, if you notice, the Rambam organized it in a very, very shmaka way. First told us Hishra Kosev, Hishakala Kosev. Then he told us what it is. And then he told us Ad Heichen. But the Gemara is hard to understand. How do we ask a question Ad Heichen Kibbud Avim? We don't even know what it is. We haven't explained what it is yet. Go through a Amud Gemara of Ad Heichen, which beautiful stories, they're great stories. But we don't know what we're doing. So what it should have said is right away in the beginning, the inyan of what's Kibbud Avim? Now, another question that bothers me, just to note, I don't profess to be an expert in Talmud, but Baruch Hashem, we have tools of searching, and the phrase Ad Heichen on a mitzvah is found 3 times in Shas. Very rare. The interesting thing is found twice in Kedushin right here. One for mitzvah Talmud Torah, second they're given Avim, and one more in Erechin Antechocha. Right? What is this question around Heichen? Why do we ask this question on Heichen, specifically in this halacha Kibbud Avim? Where do we? Why are we asking this? All right, I'm cutting out a lot of the stuff to keep this as short as I can because it's not. There's a lot really here to talk about on the sides and then the points, but I want to focus on the main point. The idea that the Gemara tells us Hishra Kosu, Kved of, the Kved Amokim, and Hishra Kosu, Meira As of to Meira As Amokim, is not just to elevate the mitzvah in our eyes. There's a Gemara in Bamitzia that wants to use that as a reason that you listen to your parents over the Eibishter. In a famous shaila, if a father tells you to do something that's not up your halacha, right? Tells you to go make yourself a kohen, to go tamei, become tamei, not to return an aveda. So we learn that from a pasuk. We need a special pasuk to tell you, Ani Hashem, kulchem chayovim b'chvei. Do it. I stand above you. And where is the question? Why didn't there pasuk? What's the havamin? And there's other problems with Allah. I'm not going to get into that sugya. The Gemara says the following words: "Bamitzia davlamad beis." If you don't trust me, go look it up. So kedai techamina. Hoyil vehukish kibud av ve'em lekvedesh amokim. We should listen to them. Kamashma, in other words, go against many rules. They go around the rule of. Another portion of the Amish says the mitzvah comes before everything else. No, maybe this comes first. The Rishonim won't try to explain. You go to Hishva, it's equal. Or and the Gemara is there. Lashon's hookish. It's compared, but it's not better. The Ritva says no, it's better. They should hifriz v'kibud avim yesim mikvede. There's a sikha in Chelik Lamed Vav where the Rebbe mentions the Ramban that the Aseres Adibris are divided 5 mitzvahs ben Adam l'mokim and 5 mitzvahs ben Adam l'chavere. And Kibbud Avim, according to Ramban, falls under the ben Adam l'mokim. basically explaining that it's a mitzvah, and the Rebbe explains it there at length. It's a the machlekes in the Ramban and the Chinuch that it's a mitzvah of it's a mitzvah of the Eibishter. The parent being mechaber the parent, the mitzvah of the Eibishter. Based on that, I think the Rambam's introduction of shokal is not just words. He's not just coming to tell you how great it is. He's coming to set up the mitzvah. And the Gemara also, when the Gemara starts with Tan Ramban, Gemara is telling you it is mitzvah of Kved Hamakim and Meira Hamak. Oh, now we're in a different league. So that's why the Gemara doesn't ask us right away what it is, because we know. Let's go back a few months ago. I will learn the Chamba, take out a Hilchas Beis Abchira, and see what's called, where do you have Meira of the Eibishter? Rambam says, mitzvahs esel yiras hamigdosh. I mean, there's a concept of Meira of something that's being Meira of the Eibishter. Shnema migdoshai tira'u. The loy min hamigdosh atayare el misha tziva yirasa. There's such a concept that you have to be afraid of awe of something and give it kavod, and the Rambam gives there a list of things of awe, a Meira, and you're not really being Meira of the building. You're being Meira of the one that's there, the Sheikh there, or whatever, the Meira of the one that's in Saval Yirasa. And then he goes on to say that you need to have Shmira, the famous Sikha, and that, they say the kavod, the Rambam says, She'ein Shmira Soya Lekavod Loi. Okay, so we have a parameter established of how something that you're approaching with kavod and meira of a davar gashmi in this world is really a kavod and meira of a davar of the Eibishter. We have that. It exists. So once we have established that hishra or shakal or hukash kveidam lekveidam makam, the Gemara doesn't have to get into right now every detail what it is. We have an idea. You know, what will bring out awe of the Eibishter? Whatever brings out awe of the Eibishter will be the things that you need to do for your father. In other words, that's why it'll bring you things that have to do with awe of the father. And whatever has to be with bringing out, showing that you're mechabed, the Eibishter, you're going to have to show that to your father and give him things and show him things that show that you honor him. No, we have a parameter of what we're trying to do. Since it has to do with the Eibishter, what's the shear? How far do you go? In other words, we don't ask ad heichon on every mitzvah. Yeah, I'm not going to explain. I can't explain now the other two mitzvahs, Talmud Torah and Techacha. Although I probably can explain Talmud Torah, which I don't want to do now, and Techacha I haven't yet given it thought. Talmud Torah, if you understand the you say the Talmud Torah, it makes a lot of sense. What I'm asking on Heichon, but Akabanim, that's the shayla. And probably if we can figure out it'll make sense by Techach also very much. But here it's clear. How far does this relationship that I'm really having an awe of the Eibishter, the kavod of the Eibishter go? And that's what he sets up. Okay. We say that. So the Gemara makes sense why the Gemara didn't worry yet about what's the details when the Gemara asks Hadeicham, because we're not into that. We want to just know how far do you have to go with this phenomenal concept that a human being has to have the Meira of the Akam and this. Where do we take that from? And the Gemara takes it to a great thing. So now, if we analyze this, the Rambam's words are gold. Let's go back. Okay, we still have a question: what makes one Meira, what makes one God? But once we've established what we just said, the Rambam's losh that when the Rambam says Yikabel Gzeres HaKosav Yishtek Gabi COVID, because COVID is not you're talking having COVID in the Eivishtim, but it's not all, right? So I have to give him COVID. I have to give my parent COVID. But why is it this? Why I have to take on such a the teretz? Because as I will the Eivishtim, as I will the Eivishtim, Yikabel Gzeres HaKosav Yishtek. That's his rots. When it comes to Meira, the Rambam goes much deeper. Remember who you're afraid of, right? So in it goes through year of Yefacha. It's not year of your father. It's not Meira of your father and mother. It's year of Yefacha Melech Malcham Lochem Shetzivo Bekach. Remember, it's Loimen Amigdash Atiyare El Misha Tzivo Alkach Loimen Ava Em Atiyare El Misha Tzivo Alkach. So you're makes sense. That's why he's Meirich there. But he can't say that as Abba Vima to Mechabed therefore what? So therefore he says there's a cost for the Abish's decree. It's also, we'll see soon, it's a big difference, the COVID in year, and I'll explain to that in a second. There's a big difference between them. We asked the question before, what kind of COVID is this? They're doing crazy things and you have to honor them. That's COVID. Other happens, Allah is what happens if you can't handle it anymore? What do you do? There's a Taisus mentions this. There's a Yerushalmi. I believe that is the Rambam's mocker. The Yerushalmi tells a story that the mother of Rabbi Shmuel came to Besmedish and complained about her son. And she said, my son doesn't give me honor. Everybody got scared. He says, when I come from the base of Ada, I want to do certain things. I want to wash my feet. And when he doesn't let me, he takes care of me. But he doesn't let. Now, she wants to do certain, she wants to, I think, drink from the water after she washes her feet. Things that are not good for her. And things that but she wants to do it. Not necessarily nice. And he doesn't let me. Why would let her? Because he didn't want her to do something that wasn't, that he didn't think was good for her. Amru lai hayil v'hu ritzainahu kvaida. And from there comes the famous halachic expression that first appears that I found in Sefer Hasidim. Ritzainish shladam zeh kvaida. The Alter Rebbe brings it in Siman Kuf Chav Ches regarding kvaid kahuna. He also says Ritzainish shladam zeh kvaida. But it's not. We use it a lot. It's not a maimer azal. This is the word hu ritzainahu kvaida. Okay, so there's a concept, and I shouldn't compare it here to this issue, but I want to just, I think that's what the Rambam says. The parent wants to take this kis shel zohov and throw it out for whatever reason they have. They have a reason. They want to accomplish something. Now let's get into the reasons. They're not hurting you personally. They're just hurting financially. Okay, so then they'll go. The Gemara has a shaila. Is Mishalov, Mishal Ben? They ask the question on the Rambam, but there's answers. You can give answers on the Rambam. How come, even though he passes Mishalov, but he also says right afterwards, this is what the father needs, and he doesn't have his own to throw, so he's throwing yours. So he could go under that heading. That a lot of answers. I don't want to get into that now. We don't have time for that. But in the case of tearing your clothing, hitting him in the head, and puts it all together into one act, and spitting in the face, there is zero. You don't have the concept of Tzayna Shalom Zelkavay. It doesn't exist. You can't have a ratzon to hurt me physically. That's your ratzon, can't impose on my ratzon, on my being. We don't have control of other people's lives to change their life. That's not Tzayna Shalom Zelkavay. Yichalav covered from them would do us the Miskabed B'Klein Chaver is not covered. So this doesn't. That's why this doesn't fall under covet, according to them. So really, it's covet. He does not have to accept it. Oh, but there's another possibility. There's another Indian. Bottom line is being embarrassing the parent means embarrassing the Eibush, the Kabbalah, right? Means Meira HaKadosh Baruch, Meira HaMokim. And of them, Zog the Rambam, that's the halacha. This is what you got to realize, that even though mitzad the parents act, there is no reason to honor them, but you have to have the awe of them, because azay, you have to think not of them, but of the Eibush. Because mitzad them, there is nothing in their act that you really have any respect for. What you have is, you have to realize, but if I do anything, I am going to affect the Eibush part of there, the Mokum part of there. So that's why this falls under Meira. It's also interesting that in the case of COVID, the Rambam describes a bunch of things you shouldn't do. And those are, don't, in that case where they threw your kiss away, Loi yachlimem v'lo yitzar b'fneim v'lo yiches k'negim. You can't show anything of being upset, and you don't show your feelings. Here, when it comes to Meira, you just lo yachlimem. Really, and the Gemara doesn't mention any of both places. In both stories, only says lo yachlima. The teretz is by COVID, giving honor. If I show pain, it takes away their honor. If I show I'm bothering me, I'm angry, that shows honor. The Gabi Meira, only thing is I can't respond. What I feel is my feelings, but I can't respond. Ulai. That's why I'm not sure, but it might fit very nicely why the Rambam did that. But the point is that the COVID and Meira is a parent thing. Now, I just want to mention, as we said before, that this Ramban, that they're bringing that Sikha, really crystallizes the idea. And the way they explains it, it's Poshid Kvei the Meira Amok, Kvei the Kel, Meira Kel. And Dev explains it, it has to do with the Shutz and Badam, and that the parent is, that everything comes from the father, and everything comes from the Eibush ultimately, and the Eibush is the Koyach for it, and he's the Koyach that gives people the ability to have children. And therefore, it's an image of Ben Adam Makim, and therefore the Rambam makes a lot of sense. That fits very well into what the Rambam is saying. A good night of Shabbos. I gesund stark. On the next week, we will be this year. There will be probably the next to the last year that Shayach on the Rambam of this cycle, the 40th cycle, and then we'll be Metchem on those halachas that we learn on next Friday. And then Metz Hashem, we're starting a new cycle. David Helf and Salzain, more and more people joining, and Yashikayach to all those who are ma'argin these and young of the Shurim, the daily Shurim, and the Shurim of the Iyun and everything else.